Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Alex and Mo I'm a PT podcast. You could check out our banner below and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at the Alex and Mo. Subscribe on our YouTube channel at Alex and Mo Podcast, and visit our website at www.thealexandmopodcast.com. So tonight we're changing things up a bit, and we have Dr. Shannon Martin, who is a nurse practitioner in Arundel County. Nurses Week starts May 6th and goes through May 12th of this year. So we are indeed honored to have her not only as a nurse, but a primary care provider. I have to actually say she has been a blessing. I met her last year as a member of cohort 13 for the 10K Small Business Program in the Baltimore region, sponsored by, I think it was Goldman Sachs. And I had a recent medical emergency or incident, and I couldn't get into my regular primary care doctor. And I remembered, hey, I know someone from a class, so let me hit her up and see if she can take me as soon as possible. And she did. And I appreciate her being very thorough. I know as a healthcare provider, we are very challenging as patients, but I listened to everything she told me, and thank God I did, because I'm currently receiving medical treatment for the issues that were discovered, and I'm getting better and stronger every day. So my voice might not be as powerful as it has been in the past, but by the grace of God, I'm getting better. So thank you, Shannon, for being very stern with me and very
Crack your
thorough. I
whip.
appreciate it.
Well, yes, thank you for joining us. As Mo said, uh, kind of changing lanes here for this week in honor of the nurses that we know that within the last couple of years have been very, very critical and crucial to healthcare as a whole, whether it be in the hospitals or in private practice, whatever the case may be. My sister is a nurse; she's a new nurse, but she's working her way, and her end goal is to be a nurse practitioner. My brother-in-law is a nurse practitioner, so again, nurses very very loved and very valued here. So we're definitely very honored and thankful that Dr. Martin has taken time out of her busy schedule. As I just found out, she's actually in Orlando right now, so you can kind of see the nice little Caribbean background there. But yes, thank you for joining us.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm
All
very much
right. So,
appreciated.
all right. So, Shannon, when did you decide you wanted to be in healthcare and particularly nursing?
Actually, it started at high school. I went to Oxford High School in Maryland, and we actually had a clinic in the basement. And that's for people to get like school physicals, STI testing or SB testing. And I actually volunteered there. And there was an LPN and a nurse practitioner who ran that clinic. So it was funded by the county and was kind of just bred into it. So that's how I knew, at age 16, that that's what I wanted to do.
Okay. So, did you have a mentor?
I did not. Actually, I would say, the LPN was more so of a mentor, but I guess it was more so getting into that field and actually experiencing the labor and the work of it, and just it was just a natural passion for it. But no one in the family in healthcare, this is kind of something that just came about, just being in high school and being exposed to that field.
So, are you born and raised Maryland, Baltimore area?
Not Baltimore. Born and raised in Maryland, so PG County. I grew up in Fort Washington and Oxon Hill.
Cool, 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 cool.
Baltimore is like
One
a
of the
whole nother
best.
state. So when you ask someone from Baltimore, oh, you from PG County, they were like, no, no, vice
So,
versa.
I guess that's the same thing. I grew up in Miami, so people will tell you they're from South Florida or Miami, but they're really from like Fort Lauderdale, West Palm
Uh,
Beach, and I'm like, no, 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 you're not from Miami. You either are or you're not. Like, it ain't the same thing. So,
right.
but
Well, I'm a transplant of PG County, so via Trinidad
Uh-huh.
and Tobago. So,
That's where the connection came from.
So, but so you discovered like at 16 that you wanted to become a nurse,
Mhm.
and you said you had an LPN there. You know, one of the great things about nursing is that most people start off as a CNA or GNA, then they go
Mhm.
into becoming an LPN, then they could go to RN, then nurse practitioner. For
Right.
physical therapy, it's a little bit more challenging. We only have the option of becoming a PTA or DPT, but the difference in tuition is like exorbitant
Mhm.
and it's time consuming. So I actually like how nursing you have options and you can easily transition from one to the next. So did you start off as an RN or did you transition your way up into becoming a nurse practitioner?
No, once I graduated from high school, I went straight into a 4-year program. So I went to Bowie State University, and it was a 4-year bachelor's program to go straight to RN. And I think with that, a lot of people are unfamiliar with the career paths of nursing. But now they have all these accelerated programs. So, I did a 4-year program, but now they have an 18-month accelerated program to become an RN. You can't have no job, but, they have different avenues, so that's good for barriers for people who don't want to go into the medical field because of the time commitment that it takes to get a certain degree or certification.
Maybe we should look into that for physical therapy as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Do
mean,
you think?
I think we have a lot to learn from the nursing profession. As far as the diversity and the different avenues that you can get to be in front of patients in whatever level and capability you're trying to be in front of patients. When you finished that 4-year program, did you continue or did you start working? What was the next step after that?
No, I actually worked at a couple hospitals as a registered nurse for, I think I didn't go back to probably about 6 years later. And then I went into the master's program for nurse practitioner. It's just with that, you need to choose your specialty. So you can be a pediatric nurse practitioner, psychiatric nurse practitioner, mine is family medicine. So you want to choose whatever field you want. But I know with a lot of NP programs at the time, you had to have at least a year experience as a RN in the field before you could apply for the program. But now they're running it straight from RN to MSN to DNP. So, you can get your doctorates in a year and go straight. I kind of, at that time, I wouldn't recommend anyone to not have experience in between, but it's definitely doable. But it's good to get your feet wet a little bit before you go straight into the master's program.
Well, I worked at a hospital for a little bit, and it was kind of crazy to me that the majority of like lead nurses or nurse practitioners or people in like management were of a different ethnicity than you
Mhm.
are. So, what prompted you to want to go back to school, become a nurse practitioner, and actually get into private practice?
So honestly, I think just with being in high school, just seeing the role of an MP, that's what made me take that route. But when I did get when I actually entered the field as an RN in a hospital, I noticed the same thing. So you have a lot of NPs and CNAs or certified nurse assistants that were of one race, but then you have the others in higher levels of nursing that was another. But it's crazy because when I was in getting my master's, only 9% of nurse practitioners are Black. And a lot of times we don't see that in this area, the DMV area, because we're highly saturated. Um, our culture, our race is highly saturated in this area. But when you go outside of these DMV boundaries, you don't see that too often. So I did have one girlfriend, her husband's in the military. They actually had to move to Washington State, and she was an RN at the time, and had a comment that I've never seen a Black nurse before. So it was definitely a big eye opener for her just traveling to know that she was the only woman of color working in the field. So it's definitely, I'm really trying to promote people to get into the field, but not stop at one level. Like take it to the highest level that you can, because it's definitely needed, and it's still a shortage of minorities who are nurse practitioners.
Most definitely. So I mean, it's already tough, like getting into a leadership role,
Mm-hmm.
but being female and black, I mean, to start your own business, like, what challenges did you encounter doing that?
Um, honestly, I think for me, so I was the first one in my family to go to school, to go to college more so, and
Okay.
graduate. So there really wasn't a mentor to hold on to bring me along. A lot of stuff I had to learn through experience, my own research. And I think for some people, you got to just have that in you. You can, one thing you can't instill in someone is drive. Like that naturally has to be in them. A passion has to be in them. I can tell you what to do and give you some knowledge, but it got to be within you to have that initiative, or be driven to go a certain place. So for me, I think it was just naturally in me. Now, when I wanted to branch off and start my own practice, that came from working for other people and seeing what I don't want to do and what I'm willing to do and how they would run. I'm like, oh, well, this would be so much better, because we're human too. So, I don't want to be sitting in the waiting room for an hour. If my appointment at 10 o'clock, within a certain time frame, I don't want to have to sit there and I'm still sitting in the waiting room at 11 o'clock. So it was more so just me wanting to have my own rules. And I think just naturally with my personality, I don't think I was made to work for, someone um, long term. So I think I didn't find that out until actually working for under people or under other people that I really still wanted to start my own culture, my own work environment, and just went from there.
So how long have you been with your own practice?
But about 4 years. So I started my first practice. I was working for pain management. I did pain management for about 5 years. And I was doing primary care part-time as well, so family medicine. So what was a blessing was the pain management practice I worked at. They were closed on Fridays. Um, so I just started researching how to start my own practice. So, I was fortunate that, my employer at the time, she was okay with me starting my own practice. There wasn't no animosity or hate or you worried about you're gonna lose your job, because they know that you're trying to take a different, you know, path or grow. It wasn't, she didn't look at me as competition. So she actually let me use her office on Fridays. So I just started marketing, online, looking up SEO, what is search engine optimization, utilizing that and just picking up patients. So initially I was the provider, the front desk person answering the phone, and I was the medical assistant doing it all. So I started just working 4 hours a day on Friday and just slowly seeing patients. And then it just started to grow. But I just stayed in communication with her, like, hey, in 2 months, can I only work half a day on Thursdays? And then it just slowly went there. So I didn't go full time and leave my job, my full time job. It took maybe about 9 months before I did that. And just to be comfortable. But the thing with me is with family medicine for primary care practice, if you're just primary care, that's hard to do. The fact that I specialize in other areas, so I do specialize in substance and alcohol abuse treatment. I have mental health, so that is really what helped me grow. Um, just those two factors alone. So I think with primary care, I definitely would not have grown as fast as I have. But if you're doing like an urgent care, typically they pick up really quickly.
So you mentioned doing substance abuse, mental health, which obviously I think to kind of what you just said is it gave you the ability to grow because there's a need there. I mean, we know from just the last 2 years plus of COVID stuff and even way before that, that there is a gap that as healthcare we can't fill just yet, dealing with the mental health and stuff like that. What so how does that play into your ability to like bill, and compensate? Are you on a cash based model? Are you taking insurance? Is it a mix? And the reason I ask is because, typically mental health benefits and stuff like that, it's not commonly something that we hear about being
Mm-hmm.
covered by insurance.
Right. So I take everything, commercial, Medicare, Medicaid. I have a few cash paying patients, and a lot of times if someone come in and they're cash paying, I'll ask why. So if sometimes the thing is they don't even know that they can apply for their own insurance. Some people have these jobs that have these high deductibles or high plans. They don't really go to the doctor, so they'll pay cash pay. So I'm really big into why you coming in paying cash. But you have a lot of providers, especially in mental health. Yes, it's a cash paying, company, and the quality is a little bit different when you have cash pay versus those who take insurance. But a lot of them, they don't want to deal with the wait time of waiting for Medicare, Medicaid for their payouts, or they're not comfortable with how much they're getting paid. Um, so it's different reasons why some providers only take cash and some just greedy. To be straightforward, they not really, the passion ain't there.
Yeah.
So for me, it's and just growing up, I came from low income, with no silver spoon. So, came around areas that was drug infested. And seeing the help that we need, especially among our culture, it's a big thing. Stigma with mental health, especially among African Americans, especially men, trying to get them into therapy, period. So for someone to be getting treated for substance or alcohol abuse, most of my clients, are white male, between the ages of 25 to 40, for substance abuse. But I'm starting to see a lot of people of color starting to come to the practice, primarily because I am a woman of color and feel like I'm more relatable than others.
So you just shared that your experience, like growing up, sort of helped with the clientele that you chose,
Mhm.
and it seems to me like representation matters to you. Like if they see a black professional leading a business, you're more inclined to drive more African Americans or brown people coming into your business as well. So was that important for you, deciding like where you would be located?
Yeah, so initially, I did have assistance. A pharmaceutical rep actually helped me find a location for the first practice, but it took some research, going to Census Bureau, and understanding income in certain areas. So I knew the substance and alcohol abuse treatment that would take off first. So I needed to pick an area that didn't have that many providers, offering that type of treatment services that took insurance. My goal was to initially, start in my community. Um, but it was barriers to that because the stigmas associated with it. So I feel like some people who may start it in our area, or primarily in an area where there's people of color, a lot of them fail, and they end up moving somewhere else, where the stigma is not that great. So for me, once you start with this, it's a lot of it's word of mouth, So if someone's using, a lot of times they hang with other people's using. So once they start treatment, they're passing that along, like, oh, she cool, she got street smart and book smart. So when I talk to my patients, I'm talking to them like they're human. I'm a human too, so I learned a lot about the streets that I didn't know. From my patients, I have a lot of people that's been incarcerated for years, straight felons, but they're really trying to get it together. So I'm big on just providing other resources, helping them with job placement, or, send them somewhere for job placements, because I get it. I grew up, um, with family members who same situation. Um, and, have good intention, but, sometimes the system is not designed to get you where it is. So it's just a little bit of help to help them.
And I'm sure that alone, that vibe that you set, where it's like, look, I'm not here just for this one piece of your problem. I'm trying to treat you as a whole. In physical therapy, we always talk about treating the person as a whole, not just a body part or a joint that we deal with. We want to treat the individual. So you obviously, by doing that's going to get back. And like you said, those individuals tend to run in the same circles, so it's very easy for that word of mouth to spread. Now, you
Mhm.
mentioned that some of your clients are white. How does that factor into your practice? Has it even factored into your practice? Have there been any obstacles that you've had to overcome just from a purely black and white standpoint?
Surprisingly, no. I really think I feel like some people can put barriers or perceptions on race, but if you haven't experienced it, you don't know. So you would think, okay, a lot of white clients want to come to you and you Black. They don't look at me like that. They look at me as a human being. Are you gonna help me or not? So that's typically what it is. And just with whites, they seek treatment more likely than Blacks do. So for me, I'm not really promoting in their community. I'm trying to promote in our community to get us there. So my goal is to. I have 3 practices, but my goal is to go where I came from. But it starts with me doing certain things, whether it's videos and trying to get into that, or just word of mouth to explain the stigmas associated with treatment, so I can actually have a practice where I grew up, and they get the same quality care as if they was going somewhere else. So Glen Burnie it has its rough sides to it, so I'm kind of like 10 minutes from that, which I like. So my clientele is so diverse. So we have high profile 6-7 figure earners, and then we have some don't have a place to stay. But I still treat them all the same. When you walk into the practice, you don't even know you're in a medical facility, and you don't know whether somebody's there for asthma or somebody's there who's struggling with heroin dependency. So that's how I like it. It stays clean, and my clients treat it, as such.
I can definitely attest to the welcoming environment of your waiting room and the professionalism of your staff as well too. So you said you've been in practice for 4 years,
Mhm.
and not only do you have one location, but you have two.
That's
So
3.
you have three now.
I have 3
Wow.
now.
Alex, man, we're doing something wrong.
No, man. I mean, I think again. I think well, first of all, it's what she said. I mean, you got to have that hustle, that grind mentality in you to do something like that in 4 years. And I applaud you for that, because that's
Yeah,
big. That's
excellent.
big to
Thank
be
you.
able
Thank
to do something like that. And in just talking to you, you can tell that the motivation comes from the heart,
you.
and everything else that you have reaped from that because of that, right? Like, you weren't chasing something else. You
Mm-hmm.
were doing it for the right reasons. You are doing it for the right reasons. And this is the success that comes with it, man. And this is something that I always, I say a couple of times, like, if you love what you do,
Right.
the money and everything else that you want is going to follow.
Exactly.
I'm a firm believer in that. So yeah, I mean, having 3 locations and in 4 years, that's big. What how big is your staff, or are you just kind of rotating through all the different locations?
No, so I'm primarily at the Glen Burnie location. I just hired another nurse practitioner. I have a psychiatrist. We have a therapist. We have 2 more that we're hiring for therapy alone. And a full, several medical assistants and, 2 front desks. I just hired a director because as business grows, it gets rough. So, even for me, I'm going through those growing pains. When you bringing on 3 people making 6-figure salaries, you gotta make sure you can pay their bills. So now it's me. I don't want to completely pull out of the field, but I have to in order to make sure the business continues to sustain and that I'm able to take care of my staff and make payroll. So I usually tell people business is not what you think. That Instagram stuff, it's all good. So even in Goldman Sachs, with Mo, it was crazy because they was talking about statistics of who actually has employees, W-2, not 1099s, and it was only 7% of businesses in the U.S. has 2 or more employees, W-2s. So that's the big thing. I mean, with that, it's payroll taxes that comes out, so you get hit hard. So I see why a lot of businesses are stagnant, where it's just look, we 1099 it the whole time because you can't afford benefits and all that stuff. But for me, it's just been a straight blessing. I give all that credit to God. It took hard work, but it's growing pain. So if I gotta skip my paycheck to make sure my staff is paid, it is what it is. But it just comes naturally. And I think that comes from me doing it with the right purpose and not because I'm money hungry, just trying to take people's money, and keep it moving.
Yes, we definitely learned a lot during that Goldman Sachs 10K small business
Mhm.
program. And Alex, I got to see her negotiating skills, and I would not like to be on the other side of
Oh,
her.
look, you don't even
Like
have to tell
that.
me. I can just tell. I can just tell by listening to her talk. I'm like, I ain't trying to mess with her.
Dang, Mo.
Man.
That's when it comes to business, you know.
Right? That's hey, but that's how it's
You
got to
got
be.
to.
That's how it's got to be because there's a time to do business, and then there's a time for the friendly conversations and the good stuff that comes
It
with it.
is.
But business is
She
business.
shocked. She shocked even the professor for that segment that we did on negotiation. I was like, damn.
We all human. We all human. But no, it's
So
just me being in a field, I'm automatically questioned. So me walking into, if I have to, right now I was chosen to be a representative for it's a drug called Lucimira, and it's the only FDA medication approved to help with opiate withdrawal symptoms. So I was asked to actually be a provider, a representative for that. The first time they asked a nurse practitioner, first time they asked someone who was black. So when I go into a room,
Hey, we gotta
they
pause
make
and
sure
celebrate.
she comes.
We gotta pause and celebrate.
Yeah, it's already looks, and she not a physician, so but you walk into a room of physicians and you're trying to, educate them on a drug, but sometimes they can't even get across what they see. You can absorb the knowledge. So I kind of walk in. I gotta be prepared and know what I know and know what I don't know. So not fake it at all. So it's sometimes it's not more so you guard it. I'm prepared when I walk in a room, like try me, So it's the way it's set up, but it's all good. So we're trying to get more of us up in here.
hey, it's working so far for you. So definitely keep it going. So I mean, you've talked about the grind and the growing pains that you're going through. In the little, before we came on live, we were talking a little bit. You mentioned you have a child or more than one child. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I have a son
Um,
and daughter. Mhm.
so tell me about your work-life balance. I mean, you're trying to start a business, run a business, expand a business, keep the business successful,
Mm.
while you still have somebody that looks up to you, needs you. Um, how has that been for you? What, if any, struggles? And then what would you tell, or what tips would you have for that woman, mother, entrepreneur that wants to do this but has all these other responsibilities? Because as a married man, I mean, I'm very blessed to have my wife who's my rock, but I know the amount of work that it takes, and I can't even begin to want to step into those shoes because I just can't
Mhm.
fill them. So yeah, what how does that work for you, and what would you tell a woman, a young high school student who has these same ambitions that you have or had?
Honestly, I think when you in a position and you don't have no other choice, you just do it. So I have a friend who has 3 children. She's single, a single mom. She has her own company, always traveling on the go, and then she has a son that's playing, sports. It requires a lot of her time for him. I hear people, how you do it. She's like, I just do it, because there ain't no choice but to do it. So you got to pull that energy from where. So even when I opened my first practice, it was a lot of my time out of the house, making sure the contractors on their job, so I can open up on time. But it's more so just knowing like it will pass, it'll get better. So for me, even if I got to bring my kids to my office, this time I had to take them to work with me, whether they were sick. So I did what I have to do to make sure they were good. So they sitting in the back office doing their homework or got their iPads or whatever to make it work. But it does take some self-reflection as well for me to realize that you got to chill for a moment and know when to take a break. To actually talk to your family, whether it's your spouse, your children, see little clues that's showing, I'm feeling like you're not in the home, or, you're not taking care of home. So it's more so kind of buckling down and figure out in 24 hours or 40 hours, does it matter whether you finish this task or not? If it can wait a little bit, yeah, it's going to pile up on your plate, but you're going to get through it. But this is more important right now. But there's times, we all go through times where finances, you got to get it, whether you got to get in a part-time job or whatever, but it's just in that moment, do what you need to do for that moment, and then things will just naturally get better.
Wonderful. Alex is very big on work-life balance and family life.
Mm.
I'm working on doing better at the work-life balance stuff.
It's not
Sometimes we
easy.
don't
It's
have
not
a choice.
easy.
Yeah.
My time
It,
management stuck before I even opened. I'm late for everything, y'all. It's terrible. So that's something I'm working on. I'm just late, and I understand where it comes from. I don't like waiting. So if it's a event that starts at 8, I want to get there at 7:55 or 8 o'clock. I don't want to have to wait for the event. But then you got people waiting on you. So it's understand it's terrible. But it's understanding myself. And for me it's like, now, okay, you think you can get finished in an hour and a half, get dressed and get out. No, darn well it's gonna take me 2 hours. But I had to really learn how my brain functions. Um and where how I have some attention deficiency. So it's like I'm trying to get out the house. I'm like, oh, let me put this load in. I got about 2 minutes. I could put this load of clothes in. Then I find something else in another task. So I did learn it was like a mild form of, ADHD, where it's like I have to just keep being on the run. So I think that's where it comes from, the business mindset too. Like, what's next? What's next? But now you get burnt out. Now I'm tired a little bit. So I'm like, let me chill, for a minute. Bills are paid. There's no need to do right now, but I know I still want to continue to grow. But I just want to make sure my foundations are set. But I tell some people, yeah, I'm married, and it's just, yeah, during that time, sometimes you're gonna have some friction in marriage, especially some people just don't understand a business owner. I hate to use the word entrepreneur, so it's such a fad now. But sometimes that business ownership, you really don't understand it unless you're in it. So I know a lot of people with their relationships or marriages, some have failed or really took a hard hit because you on grind mode and just trying to get it done, and they don't understand how to support you, and then you don't understand how to tell them how to support you. So sometimes, I think I read, an article or something, the best is two people who are business owners who have a work-life balance. They really succeed, but it just takes a lot of understanding and communication to get through that. But now that I've grown, things have actually calmed down. So it's easier to open up another practice because I already know what to expect.
So, what is your, I think all, you always see these things on Twitter, social media, like all the things that successful people do. They wake up early, they read, they exercise, whatever, whatever, whatever. What is your thing that you have to do to so your mind is like, okay, I'm ready to go today? Like for me, I gotta work out in the morning. Like if I don't work out in the morning, it's usually doesn't set me up for a good day. I'm kind of irritable because I'm upset that I didn't work out. Whereas the days where I work out, I feel like I'm ready to tackle the day, and like I feel like I've already conquered the day, so to speak. So anything else after that is like bonus. Is there something that you do that kind of gets you into that frame?
So for me, as a daily routine, no. It just depends. So a lot of times I'm waking up, and I should be waking up earlier, but I have noticed I just need me time. I know when to just sit down, and it could be whether I just want to go sit and get my feet done or nails done. It could just be that hour of time. Mo knows, shoot, sometimes that means the me time is happy hour, and I need a drink or two to just,
Decompress. Yeah.
it's real, so it's just more so just knowing me, vacation, I'm big on that. And it don't have to be if nothing extravagant. I could take a staycation, go to Virginia somewhere just to see the fields, or go to a vineyard. I just can see, outdoors. I love, outdoors, and just landscaping. It's just a sense of peace. And with me having a Christian spiritual background and more, I just need to pray. Like, get yourself together, or have some time of devotion and reflection to myself. But I do need to work on letting that be a more of a daily routine, because I'll go through periods when I'm doing it daily and consistent, and you feel much better. Just getting to work 15 minutes early, where you could just sit down in this group, instead of me getting there right there when my first patient comes, and now I got to hurry up and get in the room. I got to work on not being like that, because I don't want my kids to be like that. So them to have poor time management, because they're looking at me with that. So it really does feel good to wake up, even if it's 10, 15 minutes early, just to kind of get yourself together. I have a devotion book right beside me that, one of my girlfriends bought me. Just read a scripture, write something down, say a prayer, and keep it moving.
Absolutely.
So
Okay.
it seems like you're always like on the go. So is it
Mhm.
that you have to keep busy to, as you say, sort of counterbalance that slight ADHD that you have, or to
Yeah,
feel
I think
like
it's
you're
a
being
sense of
productive?
for me, it's a sense of satisfaction. Like I'm very impulsive, and
Hmm.
usually and people used to tell me that, and I usually took it as negative. And my best friend can really vouch for that. Like, I'm not impulsive. I make decisions. I think about it, but I'm just just fast paced all the time. And I noticed it, just from school. I'll have a 30-page paper due. I'm going to the club. I got an 8 o'clock class with 30-page paper, but I'm getting at 2, and I would stay up until 6 to get that paper done, sleep for an hour, go to my 8 o'clock class, and ace it. Or even tests. I studied the day before. I don't care how intense that test is, but somebody else may need a couple of weeks. But my brain has always been programmed like that, and it's honestly it works for me. But it takes me to know when it's time to sit down, when I feel burnt out. But my cousin, who I'm actually here now, she actually was the one who referred me to an article because she actually went to a therapist, and she'll talk about it because she functions the same way. But for her, it was causing issues with her functioning because now I can't get stuff done. So for me, I can have 10 tasks, they're going to get done. But when it starts to affect home and you missing stuff, you missing deadlines, that's when it's more so you got to look into it. So she did. And, was saying it was a form of ADHD, but we're thinking that's more like, you're in the classroom, can't focus, can't get stuff done, a child that's rowdy, just having behavior issues. It's not. And then she explained the dopamine receptors and everything of how that's a actual stimulation for our brain is good for that. Like this, it's like food, for our brain. So that's how I'm wired, and I'm accepting it. But as I'm getting older, it's just knowing, hey, you need to take time and take a break, even though I feel like I want to keep being on the run.
Okay, so as a black woman, mother, spouse, everything, most people tend to look at, especially like a business owner, as being superwoman. Like you're managing everything, you're doing it all. So when you have your own like internal struggles, or you feel like you're getting burnout, do you feel like it's easy for you to ask for help, or do you feel like you can get that support from friends and family members?
So asking for help, I struggled with that for a long time. I probably over the past, I want to say 2 years, I actually started getting comfortable asking for help. Like it was a big struggle, and that really just came from me just being so independent at a young age. So putting myself through school, putting myself through college, paying for my own prom. It was always just me making decisions and just always in a move. So I had to rely on me. My credit messed up, ain't nobody else to fall back on or ask for help. Or for school, I didn't have, my parents didn't have it. Mom didn't have it to pay for school, so I had to make sure whatever decisions I made, it better be right, because there was no one to fall back on. But just as getting exposed, college has exposed me to a lot of people. It has developed a lot of relationships, and a lot of time you start to hang with people who are like minded. So for me, my girlfriends are a strong support for me. So just recent events, with me having to move, really fast, they were there. If my kids, I'm running late to pick up something or they need me to do something, they'll Instacart food to my house or something like that. But I do that in return. So when you're giving like that, you showing that loyalty and friendship to someone, it'll be given to you. I know people get burnt, but you got to learn. You learn sometimes. But now I'd be like, let me know if you need help. Actually, I do. You want to throw it out there because people say, oh, just call me, let me know if you need help. They really don't mean it, or they're not expecting you to say, oh yeah, well actually yes. Oh, I would say yes actually, but they do the same for me, and it actually feels good. It feels amazing now to be comfortable with doing that. It's still some work in progress, but it was definitely an issue for me. And it honestly didn't get better until I started therapy.
Okay, that's great to hear because even as a business owner myself, sometimes I struggle with that because some people would look at you like, what do you have to complain about or stuff like,
Hmm.
you've been doing it all, and when you start to make some changes, people will probably say, oh, you're being a little emotional, that sort of stuff like. So sometimes the pushback, you're just like, why even bother? But it's always good. I would advise people, it's always good to get help, and therapy is a good outlet as well. So last week we had a student on, and he is actually a member of Copper, and he said the brotherhood has been good to him, where he could get support and mentorship. And I am aware that you also belong to another Black sorority. You're a member of the Divine
Delta
Nine.
Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated.
I tell you, Alex, it's something with them.
Man, listen. I went to Florida State, which, as you know, FAMU is right there. So like I was very immersed in this whole the black fraternities and sororities, and I had a lot of friends that were in that. So yeah, it was fun times.
Right.
So I noticed that there have been a lot of deltas in healthcare. So have you had a strong support system from your sorority being in the healthcare field?
Yeah, so a lot of it's references. So like the Anne Arundel County chapter. Right now I'm inactive with grad. And I made that decision because I needed to focus on other things. I hate being committed to something I can't fulfill. So I really had to pick and choose what I needed to pull off my plate to do it. But they do health fairs all the time and would have no problem reaching out to me and like, hey, can you do set up a blood pressure station or anything like that. So it's when you start to expose yourself and be a little bit more social, you develop relationships. And I may not, me like you and I may not talk to you in a year, but if you call me next year, I got you. It's just that natural, chemistry or bond that you have. And it seemed like we ain't talking in a year. It seemed like it don't even feel like that, when you do talk to someone. So, yeah, it's just the exposure. So, being a Delta, it did expose me to a lot of people and just developing relationships. Then you meet people on top of that. You pick and choose, who right for you, who not. Some people, the relationship is just, business. Y'all help each other out, and some, develop actually personal relationships with people. But I've always kind of kept my circle small, intentionally. But I have a lot of associates, a lot of business associates I can call at any time, and vice versa.
In my undergrad sports management class, I remember my professor, she was a Delta as well too, and she clearly told me that I needed to learn how to play two sports well, tennis and golf, and I should join a sorority. I ignored that advice
I think
because
I'm like, no, I'm not doing it.
no. Honestly, like growing up where I was, I honestly thought like sororities and fraternities were like secret society stuff. And I think around that time there was a movie called Secret Society, and I watched it, and I was like, I'm not messing with that. But I did go learn how to play tennis.
You got something out that
and,
conversation.
and I actually ran into her recently, and she was like, "So what are you doing now?" So I was like, I have my own business." So she was like, "Yeah, I could see that. I saw that, a while back." So she asked like if I was in sports management. So I told her no, I was actually, doing physical therapy. So she's like, "Oh, I'm not surprised either." So she's like, "Are you good at golf now?" I was like, "Oh, heck no." so,
I
so
heard it's relaxing. I tried it. Man, I was holding up the people. I had trying to swing at the ball like 20 times, missed it. And it was all the rest.
There's nothing relaxing about the game. It's the most frustrating game ever.
What? You in that blazing sun?
Yeah, it's
No,
I love it. I enjoy it, but it is the most frustrating thing. But you only need one shot, and that's what keeps you coming back. So, you get that shot, and
Yeah.
you're like, hey, I can do this. I'm gonna come back, and we'll keep trying at it. So, but
Holla at me.
I will stick to I will
Yesterday. Give
stick
me
to
an
putting
18
and
hole
Top
with putt
Golf.
putt golf. We good.
Yeah, Top Golf, and putt putt.
Right.
there you go, Top Golf. We might have to do a show from there one time.
Right.
Yep.
Here's something I found
Most
on the web.
definitely.
According to
But
fixingit.com, the different time zones in the USA.
Alexa done picked up on
yeah. But yeah, so that was actually, she gave us pretty good sound business advice in that class. Because I knew physical therapy didn't work out. I was definitely gonna be in sports management or something with sports. So what advice would you give to like a nursing student or someone working in a facility or hospital that, you know, is thinking about taking that leap of faith, but they're like, I don't know if it's gonna work out, because there's always that doubt or fear that if I do this, it might not reap the benefits as people portray it to be.
Honestly, my thing is do it in fear, because I've been doing it the whole time, and being uncertain.
Yeah.
It's life. You're not gonna be certain, but so people operate like, if I'm not sure or 100%, I ain't gonna do it, or it deters them. They would have been aced it, been a beast at it, but because they let their mindset hinders them. So I say do it in fear. And we know what's the worst can happen. Just like you asking someone a question, you're gonna get a yes or no. No, it's the worst you're gonna get if that's what you're looking for. So me, I go through my times. My friends go through their times. We cry with each other. You got 5 minutes to cry, and then I need you to boss up and get going, because your kid's calling you. So it's a thing. It's human. It's natural. It's more so, just find someone if you can. And I'm always reaching out to young girls, even young men. Just to promote them, just to do it. Get yourself. Don't run that generational curse, or just be exposed. Get exposure to different things, and just do it and see how it works out. But definitely do your research too. So people go on with these majors, it ain't gonna provide. Honestly, the way the system is set up is, you got to be strategic about what you want to do. Is it gonna provide your lifestyle or what you want? Um, but at this point, I think with my field, you have to have a passion for it. Some people don't. You could tell. So my patient can tell. Whether you just here for the money or you actually care, but you just got to do it and put that work in.
Okay.
Shannon, what would you say is the point when you look back at where you started and where you are now? What point, or is there something that sticks out to you that says like, this was the time when I made this decision and it got me here? Like, this was that pivotal point to where everything just kind of changed for me.
For me, I got to that point when I first opened a practice where there was no more space on my schedule. There was no more. It was just filling, and it was like, oh, this really about to happen. you know. Um, it was more so, just logging in like, oh, let me see if I got some more patients, and it just kept going. It was to the point where I couldn't manage making calls and doing a front, and then seeing the money come in. Okay, you can't afford to bring somebody in, but I didn't even know how to even calculate that. So I didn't know if I could afford it or not. I just know I need help, because I'm not going to be able to grow without me having somebody with me. So I just would bring somebody on. So bring on a front desk person. Then I had to bring on a medical assistant, because that was starting to get overwhelming. Then the phones, front desk looking at me like, hey, you gotta hire somebody, because these strings right here, I can't handle these phones. So it's bringing somebody else. So for me, someone else who really knows that research, they probably would have been very more prepared, had everything laid out, spreadsheets or whatever, to tell, hey, whether you can afford this. I just had to go on faith and just know, hey, I just need somebody. And then payroll come, hey, I can get paid, I can afford yours and yours, and it's some profit. So even now I'm doing the same thing. I have to hire because I know, look, we can't even get patients on the schedule. I don't want it to be where, you're a month, like you can't see me in a month or two. Some stuff is urgent. So when it gets to that point and it remains consistent, I'm pulling in. But now, when you're dealing with different things, I have to be a little bit more strategic. But I don't know everything. That ain't my field. So that's why you hire a director who knows, hey, how to look in QuickBooks and figure out whether you can pull this, get your accounting together. So for me, I'm not going to know everything, but I'm blessed that I can pull in outside resources to help out on where, honestly, I am not trying to know. So for me, I know how to make money. I know how to produce it. But as far as managing it and knowing these numbers, I wish that I leave that to somebody else. But I'm just glad I'm able to do it.
As our business counselor said to us, trust yourself to trust your team.
Mm-hmm.
That still sticks with me today. So you gotta surround yourself with people that you could trust to do things that you're not the best at. So building that strong team is important, and I'm glad you're continuing to expand. I'm glad you have that drive and the desire to see, make sure that your clients, no matter their economic status, their educational level, have the best care. I just want to say the cardiologist that saw me right away asked who was my primary care provider, and I said, "Hey, she's Shannon, the nurse practitioner." He was like, he told the person, "Enter her into the system right now." So, so I just wanted to let you know that. So they were pleased with how in depth you were with
Yeah,
your
but where you needed to go. Yeah.
Alexa. I'm never gonna hear the end of this, am I?
Right. You
And that
know,
was the instance. I didn't know exactly what was going on, but I knew it wasn't right. So,
Yeah.
for me, I could have easily sent you out, oh, your EKG is fine, you're good. Like, nah, and that's just, honestly, that comes with experience. And just me doing my research. Well, I know when I first started, when you by yourself and you have somebody come with all these symptoms, I don't know what the hell that is. So I'm sitting on Google in front of them. Hey, give me 1 second. And trying, and figuring it out. It wasn't a thing where I had to, before you left, I had to have your whole plan. I'm going to call you before the end of the day because right now you on 20 different meds and you got 20 symptoms. And I cannot put that together in 15, 20 minutes. And I need to make sure I ain't killing nobody. So, I really do know when I don't know. But for you, I knew, hey, it's falling one of these lines because it's the way it was proceeding. But that takes experience for me to even pick up on that. And just being in different fields. So someone, if this is an orthopedic person, they probably would not have known, if they have, experience in primary care or experience in cardiology. But just me going in different fields, that's how I'm able to pick up on, certain things. But it's still a lot of stuff I don't know.
Okay. So experience matters when you want to get into primary care. Experience with different
Absolutely.
fields. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it don't necessarily have to be in different fields. If you just want to stay in that area of expertise, make sure wherever you go is somebody who actually helping to teach you. Because you can go somewhere and they just used to seeing patients and you're not even learning anything. But it takes you to actually educate yourself too. So, some MPs, students who come to me, I'll help you out, but at the same time, I got to move and see patients. So I'm relying on you to have your laptop and your notepad too. Remember this one patient who was difficult. Go back to them and see what I did. Hey, here's my top 5 blood pressure medications. Put those as your top 5 and go in that order. But then once you start doing things and learn on your own, you may change up the process. But it takes someone who actually is willing to teach and there's someone who's willing to learn. So it's work on both ends.
Okay. Now, physical therapy is facing payment crisis, reimbursement crisis, because we keep getting cuts in reimbursement. Is nursing facing that sort of situation as well, or primary
Man,
care?
you don't even know. So when COVID hit, so Medicaid falls under this branch of a third party that makes payments out. So under Medicaid, you have Amerigroup, Priority Partners. You have different insurances under Medicaid. So this one company, they get paid millions of dollars by the state of Maryland to make sure these payouts go to everyone appropriately. So their contract was over. So they found another company that was, 20 million plus less to do this. But sometimes when you pay less, you're gonna get that type of work, when you're trying to be cheap. So it caused a big impact. So typically, we get payments for Medicaid every week, every week. Once it took them 9 months for these two companies to kind of transfer over and teach them and get the system. We thought it was going to be smooth sailing. It hit, payment ain't coming in. We like, wait a minute. So if all your patients are basically 80% Medicaid, you ain't seeing no money coming in. You still got to do payroll. So it hit all mental health. So whether it was inpatient, outpatient, it hit me because, substance alcohol abuse fall under that. So I wasn't getting paid for Medicaid. And that's where most of the chunk of, payments come from. And that's where it came, look, having a line of credit. Honestly, some practices actually had to fire their whole staff. And you just had this one physician doing everything because they wouldn't get paid. So it's to the point Governor Hogan had to get involved and require estimated payments until they got their system together. So that right there, that was nothing but grace from God. But when COVID hit, it was more so a lot of these practices are closing or they weren't seeing patients. So guess what? They coming to me, who was open. With COVID, a lot of mental health hit, depression, anxiety, finances. People sick, they need to see somebody, but won't nobody take them except these ERs, that's kicking them out if it wasn't, COVID related. So that was for me just staying open. So, I done caught COVID twice and even though I had it, but that kept me afloat. But I do knew two practices, they had to shut down because they ain't had the money. So yeah, you never know what's going to happen. So, people think there's stability at some point. But, even with Goldman, they like, get a business line of credit if you can, because you want to have it before you need it. Because when you need it, they looking at that and they taking a little bit of time, to do it. So you be like, look, I need 50,000, to take care of payroll over the next 2 or 3 months, but it's going to take the bank a month to get it. Your staff looking at you like, what is it? We ain't working for free. So that was an instance where, it hit hard. And then, with COVID, a lot of people just pulled out of the work industry. So that's why it's so much shortages. It's shortage in healthcare. You go to these restaurants, they got half the restaurants closed off because people are branching off doing their own thing or, hey, they making more money at home, whether it's on assistance or not. So, yeah, so it definitely is industry wide and everyone's taking a hit from it.
Do you have a challenge like hiring good staff or retaining good staff?
Oh,
Because in healthcare, there's a lot of high turnover.
So for me, I honestly don't have a high turnover rate. And I think some of that comes from, I'm really big on the work environment and the culture. You spend most of your life working, especially if you're doing a full-time 9 to 5, you at work more than you are at home. So I really try to cultivate that environment where I understand. So on Fridays, we do half a day on Fridays. Y'all start your weekend early, be with your kids, your boo, whatever you want to do. But just make sure, hey, there's still some extra time on Friday for those hours for you to get stuff done. Holidays, we ain't working them. I have kids too. When it's storming outside, I ain't expecting nobody to come out and it's dangerous. So, but you have some employers now, you got to get here or you're gonna lose your job. So I don't foster that type of environment, and I'm not a micromanager. My door is open. If y'all need me, you good. This whole week I haven't been, in the office in about a week. They call me if they need me. But as the practice has grown, I have had to honestly terminate more staff often. It seems like when you're getting more people, it's hard. It's really hard to manage a whole bunch of people, at one time. So, my girlfriend's like, Dad, you just firing people left and right. Like, no, I'm really big on work ethics. People are coming into thinking it's just a job. It's not. I'm paying you way above minimum wage and you get benefits too. Like, I'm expecting a certain quality. So it definitely gets tougher for me as the business expands and you just got more people. I think that's just natural as it occurs. But he's like, now I'm used to it. But, I have a director and a manager who kind of handles the HR process, which takes a lot of that weight off of me.
Yeah, you have like the Mamba mentality, right, Alex?
Yeah. Fall in line or get out the way.
Yeah.
I
Google is serious. Some Google rates will tell you, don't mess with my ratings. Like, A staff member better not be the reason why I go from a 4.7 to a 2.
Yeah. It's very important, in business that you have the right people, but also the right people in the right places. Because if you can set them up to be successful, then in turn you're going to be successful.
Right.
So what's next for you? What's next for your company? Like what's your goal? What do you have in mind as the next thing that you kind of want to accomplish?
So it's like for financial goal, some people have these numbers. I got to make 7 figures. I want comfort. I want to be able for my bills to be paid, for me to have a good life insurance policy for my kids if I leave this earth today, and to be able to have some free time to go on vacation, to not be relying on that, paycheck, that next paycheck before you can do anything. So mine is really just comfort, especially when you come from nothing, you get a little bit of change. Like, my mindset's a little bit different. I'm not really focused on money, but, I still want to live. But for me, I think there definitely would be expansion in mental health, just because that's something dear to me. I don't even know if Mo know. Like when I had my daughter, I had postpartum really bad, like really bad. My brain was not working. It was the worst part of my life. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, and I actually had to get on medication for that. So I feel like sometimes a lot of people downplay mental health, but if you experience it, that's not you. It's a whole different ball game. So for me, it's just really important with that, just mental health. Me just knowing family and friends, just looking at them, knowing like you're depressed for real, and they denying it or don't even know. Um, so definitely expansion with the mental health field.
It's definitely needed. So I wish you all the best with that as well. I know in our class last year they told us about exit strategies, and I honestly didn't have one when we started the program, and I had to think of one on the fly. So you're the same too.
Yeah, I had no exit strategy. I was like, what is that? I'm trying to work until I'm good,
Is that
Alex,
a door in the building I'm supposed to have?
Right.
I was like, they want us to start this program off talking about the exit strategy. So I was like, oh, I'm going to pass it off to my family. And they were like, what if your family doesn't want to run your business?
Right.
So I was like, oh, well, then
close the doors.
Yeah, she asked, I was just scratching my head like, I'm gonna go bankrupt and a business fall, or we just going, bills just get paid. Yeah, it makes a different mindset. Yeah.
So did you figure one out? Do you have an exit strategy, like, where you plan on being in the next 5-10 years? If you
Yeah, for me, I definitely want to look into investments.
Mm-hmm.
But with one of the blessings with healthcare, there's money in it, to be honest. And with mental health is something that I like that I desire. So even, in that office, that's psychiatrist and therapist territory. My director is over there in that office. But, I still follow through with my patients. Hey, how was your sessions or something like that to make sure, they're getting a quality care. But for me, it's like, so people, oh, you need to get in real estate. No, I can invest in another practice and grow it, and still be, the same or, higher, but it's still something that I love to do. So for me, it's growing it, and hopefully I can transfer that over to my manager. She's young, she got that drive, that passion. She has been loyal from day one. Also kind of came to me like a family member, like looks out for me, everything, checks on my mental health, does stuff that she doesn't have to do. And actually, she's in Florida now. I was like, take a vacation. She's calling me like, oh, I feel bad not being at work. Girl, if you don't get off this phone and go to the beach. But just to see that, like, that's amazing. And just really thinks highly of me. And the same for her. So I end up finding that one person, like, hey, if I wanted to transfer everything over, she know how to run this thing.
Okay.
So I think they had listed several strategies that we didn't even know about, but I wouldn't sell the practice, but I would definitely roll it over, still maintain ownership substantially in it, and then just keep it moving. Like I'm gonna be
So,
working.
so what legacy do you want to leave? You know, what's the Shannon Martin legacy that you want to leave?
My legacy would really be that just the authenticity in me. Just, I'm very authentic. I'm transparent. I'm very caring, giving, loyal, and I love hard. So it's just more so just overcoming adversity, just showing, young men and women who came from low income, everybody has a story, but to show that you can get through it, like you can overcome it. And just me being one of those. And hopefully that's a motivational piece, for, even grown adults who still stuck, to show like, hey, where I came from, you can do it too. And, this is how I did it without even having, someone's hand to hold or a mentor, at that time to show me everything. It can be done. So that's a
I see
legacy.
a
I pass that on to.
I see a book. I see a book coming.
Do you? Who writing that?
Yeah. Hey, they're ghostwriters. You know, they're ghostwriters.
Hey, you right. So I might look. You know what God gonna do. But yeah,
Yeah.
but definitely that just passing that on, and my kids just showing what hard work does, and just making sure they work for that, and just follow their passion. So I'm like, even if you when you work whatever field you choose, and I'm not pressing my kids to go to college, I'm big on trade school. So whatever you do, just make sure it's going to pay for what you enjoy, and make sure if you leave, you got some type of insurance policy that's going to carry over and take care of you.
Yeah, I have a sister who is big on tech vocational studies, so she would be happy to hear that if she's listening
And
tonight.
yeah,
So
STEM programs, yeah, science, technology, engineering, yeah, plumbing, electricians, it's big. And you don't have to come out with all these daggone student loans.
yeah, very true, very
Wow.
true.
I had 180,000 of it. And, by the grace of God, I got that government grant that wiped that off, and it was private loans, with no federal loans. So it was no deferments. Biden stuff ain't gonna help me out. So, I had always said, look, somebody gonna pay these student loans, or they gonna get these minimum payments until I die. I don't care if I had it liquid sitting in there. It ain't going through my so y'all gonna get this minimum payment.
That's right.
So
That's
yeah, and it's
right.
just stuff you did. I think my freshman year I got a $7,700 loan. By the time I graduated, that thing was 15,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's stuff that we don't know, but they give these student loans. But you try to get a business loan, it's a wrap. So it's crazy.
Man,
So definitely passing it on to them. Like, go to general studies first. Do a community college instead of going into this $30,000-$40,000,
Mm-hmm.
tuition. Don't know what you want to do, and then you got this degree that you can't do nothing with, and you just stuck with these loans. Um,
Absolutely.
but I think it starts in middle school. You gotta have this exposure, teaching financial literacy and all of that stuff. So hopefully, they make some changes a lot in the school system, to get them all prepared for it.
well, I know Alex is in Florida, and I think they just passed a law that financial literacy must be taught at all schools in Florida now.
Amen.
Yeah, the governor DeSantis, I think it was like within the last month, he passed it that I think starting next year in high school, they have to take a financial literacy course to be able to
Yeah,
graduate.
yeah, and they're working
Yeah,
on
that's
initiatives here in Maryland. It just takes so long, yeah, for that stuff to
okay.
roll out. But that's amazing.
I yeah, I like. Well, that's one thing that he's done so far that I have to give him an applause for. Speaking about hot topic issues, I just happened to be scrolling through Twitter before we got on here, and I see that there's a threat to overthrow Roe v. Wade. So, as a primary care provider, how do you think that's going to affect your practice, if it at all it will?
So it's already a toll. Actually, we just having this conversation. And it's going to be a big thing about rights, and who determines, how can someone determine my right, especially they're not in a situation. But it's already a talk. I think it's going to cause a lot of tension, depending on where it goes. And we already know. Sometimes when you're expecting a riot or something like that. As far as the practice, I don't even know. It's like I don't know fully. What I am going to expect. I think for me, it's really going to take a lot of more talking to individuals to see their perspective of it, depending on the outcome and how they think it's going to affect them, especially for people who are not in, my economic status or my type of environment. But it's going to hit, people differently. It's going to hit low class, upper class, middle class, all differently. So it's really just getting those perspectives of it, and just me being prepared. I'm still here, so regardless of the outcome, we still gonna make a way to help everyone.
Wonderful. Great to hear. So, Shannon, it was great having you on. I hope you continue to enjoy your vacation in Alex's
This
hometown.
shit in my backyard over there. But yes, thank you very much. It was a pleasure meeting you, talking with you, learning from you. It's nice to see other people that share that go-getter, grinder, hustler mentality because Mo and I share that, and that's kind of how we came to do this podcast, and
Yeah.
hopefully our grind will help us continue to build it to what we both want it to be. But again, thank you for taking the time out, especially on your vacation, to do this with us because it was a lot of fun and learned quite a bit.
Yeah.
So thank
No,
you,
I
thank you again.
appreciate it. It wasn't no sterile podcast. I like it. You just be yourself.
Now,
I wasn't coming over here with no lab coat on. So-
our space is a very, very authentic, chill space where we let people be themselves, their authentic selves, and
right.
I always like to describe it as we just sitting back and having nice drinks,
Happy
and
hour.
good dinner,
Happy
just
hour.
just hanging out. So,
Yep.
again, it was a lot of fun. Thank you. Happy Mother's Day to you, and happy Mother's Day to
you.
all of our listeners, followers. Thank you very much for everything that you do. Without
And
you,
happy Nurses Week too. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I definitely be reaching out. I told them I'll reach out to her because just hearing what you guys are doing. I'm sitting here with a connection. Who's a big YouTube influencer. Definitely don't want to throw their name out there because they're well known, but they're very willing to help out. So it's just good to
Yes.
have
Just.
connections because you never know. You never know.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, again,
Really
thank you.
appreciate it.
Enjoy the rest of your time here in the Sunshine State, and wishing you much success when you make your way back to home and continue to grow that practice and be very successful.
Thank you, and thanks to both of you.
All right. You're welcome. All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Peace out.